All right, let's go ahead and get started today. I have a topic that I've been spending a lot of time myself thinking about. And so I've introduced this concept to many of you already. And my hope for today is that this is something that you start thinking a lot about and start spending a lot more time and effort in this exact category because it can have just a massive impact on your business when you're focusing on the right thing. So the biggest constraint in your business. Whenever I say it like that, I usually get that kind of reaction where people are a little bit confused about what it is I'm talking about. So I spent a little time chatting with AI today to help me explain it in a more simple, different format to help everybody kind of comprehend it. So this was my favorite one that I got spit out. And I'd actually heard somebody explain it this way before as well, and it helped me realize what it is. So in each of our businesses, we have kind of this proverbial bucket here. And within the bucket are different size holes that are in different locations of the bucket. And you'll see towards the top of the bucket, we have some smaller holes that are letting out a small amount of water. And towards the bottom of the bucket, we have bigger holes that are letting out more massive amounts of water. And the water coming filled in here, we can kind of in our business think of as leads. So we have leads coming into our bucket in the form of water. And then there's leaks in our bucket that is having those leads escape us so that we're not converting them. And so when we start thinking about what is our biggest constraint, we want to identify what is that biggest hole in our bucket of water that is pouring out the most amount of water, and what can we do to plug that hole as fast as humanly possible. So that is what your biggest constraint is. The biggest constraint in your business is whatever is leaking the most amount of water, which is kind of taking you further away from your goals, taking you further away from conversion. So today what I want to do is talk through the different phases of the funnel, helping you identify where your biggest constraint is, and then what should we do about fixing it. If you were like in a perfect world and you had a ton of data, what I would tell you to do is to go look back over the last 90 days and look at these 5 things. Look at how many leads were generated, and that could also be substituted as for like calls made, because that's a form of a lead. Then how many of those leads you spoke to, how many of those you set an appointment with, how many appointments you held with those people, and then how many assigned agreements came from that. Now, we probably don't have the data to answer this question, so maybe we need to go do a look back and to get this data, or maybe we need to start tracking this data moving forward so we can properly identify it moving forward. I can tell you that a lot of times it's hard to do look backs, but the ways you can do it is by looking at your CRM, like amount of leads you got, how many calls you made, how many appointments you set, and then signed agreements. I think that's an easy one for us to all count. And then what you want to identify is the leak, the biggest constraint, is where you're getting the biggest chunk of people disappearing in this sequence of the funnel. So if we're playing this out in an example, if we did like open houses. Anybody here love doing open houses? I got Kevin, I got Lena, I got Dion. Awesome. Lots of people love doing open houses. So how you would do this for open houses is over the last 90 days, you would look at how many people walked into my open houses over the last 90 days. That would be considered my leads. So these are the opportunities that I had. Then I need to count how many of those people I actually spoke with, how many of those people that I was able to set an appointment with, how many of those people I actually met with, and then what signed agreements came from it. So if we look here at this example I created, I said there's 120 people that came into our open houses over the last 90 days, but I only spoke to 12 of them. And of those 12, I set 2 appointments, held those 2, and signed an agreement. So down here at the bottom on appointments set to held, I'm 100%. So I'm awesome there. And I signed agreements with half the people I met with. So I have a 50% conversion rate. That's pretty freaking awesome too. But here at the top, I see I had 120 leads coming to my open house over 90 days. I'm pretty happy about that. That's good traffic. But I only spoke to 12 of them. So right away, boom, I say my biggest drop off is right here from 1 to 2, because I had 120 opportunities, but somehow I was only able to conversate with 12 of them. So then what I need to do is, now that I've diagnosed my biggest problem, now I can start going into prescription mode to solve that problem. So maybe I want to look at, where am I standing in my open house when people are first entering? Where am I standing to greet them? Am I using a sign-in sheet or not? When I'm greeting people, am I standing up with good posture, smiling, and reaching out and shaking their hand? Or am I kind of like kicked back in the back of the house and just being like, hey, just look around? These are the type of things that we can start to look at and analyze how we're doing them, and we can improve these things and quickly see a change in the data and a change in the results. And because if we can increase the amount of leads that we speak to, if we can go to 83, then we can start finding constraints at different points. So then if I change my speak to 83, now I'm talking to about 2/3 of people, which is pretty good. But I'm only setting appointments with 2 out of 83. Very bad, right? So now we need to start looking at, what type of conversations are we having? What kind of questions are we asking? And what are we utilizing to attract people to want to further the conversation with us beyond that open house introduction? Another example here, we say we speak to 83 people, we set 24 appointments. That's pretty good conversion rate. 20 show up, again, pretty good. But we only get 1 signed agreement from 24 appointments. Very, very bad, right? So then we know we have a conversion problem. All right. So before we go into solving these different constraints in the funnel, I first want to kind of just have a couple things that we all can agree upon, because in the end, what matters the most is helping solve the consumer's problems. And if we can, the more people we can help solve their problems at a high level and just really do that effectively, then the money and conversion becomes easy, because we are just helping people solve their real estate problems. So we first have to understand, what does the consumer think about first when we're solving their problems? Because the worst thing we can do is start talking about all the things that we want to talk about when it's all the stuff that they don't give a crap about, right? So what do sellers want to know right now? What do you guys think?
How much is their house worth?
Boom. Well, how much is their house worth? Definitely number one thing they want to know. What else do they want to know?
Why isn't it worth way more than the one that sold next door that's better?
I would say that's the same as the first one, but very much, that's a very valid question. I would group those together, though.
I've been running into sellers where they're like wanting to sit on their property because they feel like they'll get more money later down the line as opposed to selling now.
So, like, is it a good time to sell?
Yeah, like, is it a good time to sell?
Yep. I would put that in the same as, how much would my home sell for? Because they're worried about how much is it selling for, and they think time might change that. Nothing else? Sellers don't care about anything else? Just, what is my home worth, and that's it?
How much do you charge?
How much do you charge? Okay. So what's the process of working with you? I would say that's on the list, but I'd say it's much lower than other things.
How long it's going to take to sell my property? Like time?
Yes, Barisa, yes, absolutely. How long will it take? There's one other big burning question that they have, and that is, what do I need to do to get my house ready? So these are the 5 things the sellers are thinking about in order. And so these are the questions you must think about and answer in order to be coming in service of them. So how much is it worth? How much do I actually get from selling it? So, like, what's my net sheet? After I subtract my mortgage, paying you, all that kind of stuff. How quickly will it sell? What do I need to do to get it ready? And then last is the process of working with you. But so often we go in only thinking about ourselves and only wanting to talk about what's the process of working with us. Because we all believe that we're all special and we do things in a special way, and people are so lucky to get to work with us. A lot of those things are probably true, but it's just not what they're thinking about. They're thinking about, what's my home worth? How much do I get? How quickly will it sell? And what do I need to get it ready? So then on the flip side, what do buyers care about?
Location and price.
How much does the home sell for? What's going to actually cost me? So, like, what's my down payment? What's my closing costs? How much money leaves my bank account, right? How much leaves it in the beginning and every month? What's available for me to buy? How do I do all the things? Like, how do I get a mortgage? How do I get insurance? How do I pay my taxes? What are all those things? And then last is the process of working with you. So these are the questions we want to answer first in order to serve our clients at the highest level. And the better we understand this, and the more we go back to this underlying motivation, underlying concerns, the more we can help put our buyers and sellers at ease of the process. They don't care about EMD. They don't care about contingency periods. They don't care about when the disclosures are due. They don't care about any of that. They care about what a home sell for and what's it going to cost me. So as we start to get into the conversion funnel, at the top of the funnel, we have, after we get a lead, we have a conversation. And so if our biggest constraint is that we are having enough conversations, but not setting enough appointments, we have to then first look at what are we doing in our conversations. And so I really want help you guys focus on 3 primary concepts as you start having your conversations. So the first one is framing. Who here can tell me what framing is when it comes to having a conversation?
Setting the stage and bringing things at the appropriate time and place.
Setting the stage and bringing things in the appropriate time. And why is this important to do when we start working with the first time we meet with somebody or start working with somebody?
So they know what to expect.
It gives them exactly what to expect. So guys, when we're going into this first meeting with somebody, we're all anxious, we're a little nervous. Maybe we got the tunes rocking in the car to like calm the nerves and all those things, thinking about the things we're going to say. They also are nervous going into this meeting. They don't know if you're a weirdo, a psychopath, if you're going to be hovering the whole time. They're also nervous. And so by framing it, you take down their guard significantly because now they know what's coming next in the sequence of events. It also puts you in control of the conversation. Because if you are able to get there and frame what's going to happen next, now they're following your script, your standard of running an appointment. They're not just firing left and right and keeping you off your game. So it puts you in a good position of control. And then ultimately, you can maintain control by continuing to ask questions because the person who asks the questions controls the conversation. So if you ever get to a point where the other person's asking a lot of questions, you want to just then reframe their questions back into questions to understand where they're coming from. And the forward and LP Mama then becomes frameworks for you to ask questions. So forward is our most basic script for building rapport. It's all about family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And so this is a very easy way to get to know somebody when we're in that first little awkward dance of becoming comfortable with one another. The most important one by far is dreams, because that's telling us what comes next in their life. And that's what they're looking to do, because what sales really is being the guide in a transformation. And in order to guide somebody on their transformation, you have to understand their dreams to understand what they want that transformation to be. And then we get into LP Mama, which is I'm going to go a little bit deeper on, utilizing some specific language patterns. So is anybody here familiar with the language pattern called sorting questions?
I feel like I've heard it. It's just kind of like when you're pacing the call, so you're asking specific, like targeted questions to get to a certain point.
Yeah, exactly, Bruce. That's exactly it. So, and the way that you do it is just by asking this or that, and that gets you, like you said, it gets you to the path you want to go. And what happens is when you present somebody with a sorting question, they automatically will quickly associate with one of those options, or if none of them apply to them, they'll quickly say, no, 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 neither one of those are me. I am this. So let's try this. Rebecca, is your favorite color red or blue?
Red.
See how fast that was? Alex, is your favorite color yellow or pink?
Pink.
It's quick, right? It's quick answers to people because they go, oh, I know this. I know this answer. So if we ask people sorting questions, it becomes a lot easier for them to give us answers, and they can become more comfortable with the conversation quickly in order to open up further. There's this common term in the industry that buyers are liars. And we rebuttal that with buyers aren't liars. They just don't trust you yet. And so in order to get to that place, you have to ask a lot of questions and seek to understand. Now, as you're asking sorting questions, what's going to naturally happen is you're going to get responses back that are nouns. And then when you get one of those answers back, what you want to do is called a noun chain. So, for example, if you ask a sorting question of a person, you said, hey, Ollie, I'm just curious, are you looking to move into this area because of the school district or it's close to work? And if he said, I'm moving in for the school district, you know they have kids, right? Because they're going into a school district. So you go, awesome. This is a great school district. Your kids are probably really excited to go here. How many kids do you have? What are their names? What are their ages? Are you going to be putting them into sports? And so what I'm doing is I've identified the noun of the children, and now I'm linking down questions in a noun chain to get to know that person. And so when people introduce a noun, that is something that is really just like something that's near and dear to their heart that you can get to know a lot about, and you should ask a lot of questions about it. When you're going through all of these, you should seek to understand. And what I mean by that is the worst thing that you can do in your conversations is do them like a checklist. If you have like in your mind, oh, L stands for this, P stands for this, and you just go down them one by one, well, then you're being a robot. You're actually not getting to know somebody because you're not asking the follow-up questions. So no matter what answer they give you, you should seek to understand. And you want to avoid, by all costs, the fatal flaw of assuming what somebody meant by something, because two people can give the same answer and mean something completely different. And if you're ever not sure on how to get to the bottom of that, the easiest words to give to ask that follow-up question is, oh, that's really interesting. Just tell me a little bit more about that. Tell me more is the easiest way for you to then go deeper and to stay away from that checklist. So let's see this play out in LP Mama. So LP Mama, we got L is for location. My favorite sorting questions for it are you buying to be close to work or are you in a school district? You already heard me ask Ollie that one. Are you familiar with the neighborhood here in San Jose, or is this your first time visiting? This is going to tell me where they're at in the funnel. And then, are you only looking in Cupertino, or are you interested in other areas outside of this specific city? Based on these answers they give you, then you can start to understand more why these locations are important to them. Same thing with price. Now, this home is listed for $1 million. Is that a rough price point above or below your budget? It has to be one or the other, right? And then is that budget based upon sales price or a rough monthly payment? Because a lot of people like to have conversations about the sales price, but all they really care about is the monthly payment, right? Because that's what their true budget is. For motivation, we want to really get a good understanding of their timeline. So is there a specific timeline that you're sticking to, or is this based on when you find something that you like? Because then we know truly how motivated they're going to be. I've always found knowing where they currently live is really important for where they're moving to, because there's a reason why they're making that move. And again, like I said earlier, they're trying to make that transformation. So understanding what they're transforming from is going to be very, very important in their motivation. One of my favorite questions for people is, if the perfect home were to hit the market at the perfect price, would you miss that opportunity or would you want to go see that home? You know, if they want to go see that home, they are a true buyer. If they're going to miss that opportunity, perfect. We've now removed somebody from our list that we no longer have to continue to follow up with.
Note on that you have to continue to follow up with manually. Still put them on Real Scout.
Yeah, correct. And then I'm going to get to the one-to-many stuff here later. Okay, so agent. By no means ever should you ask the question, do you have an agent? If you are somebody who is asking, do you have an agent in your conversations, I could pretty much already guess that your leak in your funnel is at the conversation point from this very question. So you guys all know we've had that experience where we go into the department store and we walk in, and in our mind, we have this very specific black shirt that we're going to purchase. And we're walking into the store, and the retail sales rep sees us walking in, and they turn over with a big smile and they go, hey, welcome in. Is there anything I can help you find today? And even though we know there's a specific black shirt that we're looking for, the first thing we do is what? Boom. Nope. Just looking. I'm just looking. And it's because as consumers, we inherently love to buy, but we hate to be sold to. And that question right there immediately triggers something within us in our subconscious that tells us, hey, you're about to get sold to. Resist by all means necessary. And so that phenomenon that takes place in the department store is the same one that takes place when you ask, do you have an agent? Because the average person does know 12 real estate agents. So if you say to them, do you have a real estate agent? Yeah, I know, I got 12 of them. Buzz off. Stop trying to sell me. Instead, we want to ask questions around, do you have an agent? So great questions would be, hey, Rebecca, have you had a chance to view many homes yet? Or is this your first one? And if they have seen homes, awesome. Have you been visiting those at open houses? If they've been visiting those with their agent, they'll say, oh no, my agent, Kirsty, has been showing me houses the last 6 months and we haven't been able to find anything. Now you know this person truly has an agent instead of just a sales resistance type agent. Okay, now mortgage is one that usually comes up too early in our conversations. I find that most people are trying to pre-screen their leads and pre-screen their appointments way too much. Kevin, you have sold over 50 million per year the last 5-ish years. How often do you ask somebody about their mortgage before meeting them the first time?
I mean, there's been times where I asked them, so how are we paying for this when we're talking offers?
When you're talking offers.
Yeah.
But not the first time you talk to them.
No, that's not no. I don't like to do that at all.
So you're not trying to save yourself time by meeting with a total time waster?
I mean, this is my job. My time is being spent trying to get as many leads into the bucket as I can. I'm not going to close all of them.
Kevin sells 50 million per year. We are all probably not as busy as Kevin, right? So if Kevin is not trying to screen his appointments on that first one, why are you? And the net effect that you're causing is you're missing all of those opportunities that may become buyers later on. They might become referrals, or they might be that perfect person who just gets really uncomfortable by you asking a very personal question before they've ever even met you in person. So if Kevin's not too busy to screen his calls like that, you should not be either. Now, when we do get in person, my favorite way to ask about mortgage is, hey, Kevin, just trying to understand, are you planning on purchasing this one with cash, or do you think you'll be using a mortgage? Again, sorting question. They're going to pick one of them. And if they say mortgage, awesome. Have you already had the chance to speak to someone, or are you in need of an introduction? And then
that's also going to be market to market, though. Don't do that. Don't do that in a first-time home buyer location or something like that where you don't think you're going to be cash. But I use that all the time.
I'd still argue it's a good question because mommy and daddy might be paying.
Touche. You're actually right. Touche.
They're gonna, what you're gonna get is you're gonna get like a laugh, like, oh no, we're buying with mortgage. If it's a first time home buyer, right? Like that's how I would respond if somebody asked me that. I would like start laughing, like, oh no, mortgage for sure. I don't have that kind of cash laying around.
I have a question about this because there are like times like we'll get like, Google PPT or someone. Mm-hmm. And the listing agent is specifically like, hey, we're accepting offers now, or this home, you have to pay cash, right? And this is like our first time interacting with them. We're just trying to set up like a viewing. So I'm just wondering, is it okay then to because you're kind of forced to like ask them about this, like, well, hey, this is what the listing agent is saying for this property,
Oh, for sure. That's a whole different story because then you're sitting there, hey, are you aware this is a cash only deal? Like, You're not even asking, hey, are you prepared to pay for cash? Are you aware that this is a cash only deal?
Okay.
Yeah. That's a different thing altogether.
But even beyond that as well, like, yes, that, and also less than 1% of people buy the first house that they inquire on. So chances are if they inquired on a property that was cash only, even though they weren't able to buy it because it's cash only, they still weren't going to buy the house anyways. And all you're doing by making them not go see the house is you're missing the opportunity to go make that relationship.
Let's see. Okay.
So you're like, what we're trying to do is go out here is make friends and help them solve real estate problems. And so if you're putting up roadblocks to making friends, then you never get to solve real estate problems.
I guess the counter to are you aware this is a cash only deal? And if they said, no, I wasn't, the follow-up is, hey, I can find you a bunch similar ones that aren't going to be cash only, and then you'd fall into help your mama. Is this what you're looking for? Is this, that, and the other thing? You circle right back into finding one that's a more appropriate fit for the first one.
Okay. And then I'm sorry, and I'm just going to segue a little bit because I kind of like I'm using the framework and I just had two people that kind of fit this bill
Yeah.
where I just don't think they're really serious. You know, they're just ghosting me or going unresponsive, but they're like sending me properties. And so I'm almost to the point like, when do you let it go? Like when you can't make that friendship, right? Because they're setting up the roadblocks by either being unresponsive. They're saying they want to schedule a viewing, but then they're not confirming. So then it's like, well, you know, do you really want to view this property? Why am I connecting with the listing agent if you're not even going to confirm that you'll be there? You know?
Did you meet him in person?
No, I didn't. I couldn't even get them to like answer the phone or like just even respond to a text.
You got to
Yeah.
You got to just fight for that in-person meeting. And if they're ghosting you on that, then you need to flip them to the one-to-many. So we'll get to the one-to-many.
Okay.
This right now, what we're talking about is all one-to-one. And then, so one-to-one is, hey, when we have people who are collaborative with us because they're actually talking back. If we get people who are not collaborative on one-to-one, then they need to be in the one-to-many bucket. So you have to have a strategy for both. And so this strategy right now is only the one-to-one strategy.
Kyle, can I jump in here and make a point on this as well? Because I have a little bit of thoughts on this too.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the, I don't want to say fatal flaws, but one of the biggest flaws, especially for newer agents, will be so protective of their time as in like, oh man, is this a waste of time? Everybody's stage of your career is going to be different. If you look at your day, not as an agent, we have all this freedom. We can go do other things. We don't have to work 9 to 5. But if you say like, no, I'm going to put 8 hours into real estate a day. I'm going to treat this like a full-time job. I'm going to work it. Think about that. Well, hey, if I have 8 hours of work that I'm doing with showings and following up with people that are really busy and doing all these things that are super productive, yeah, it's like triage. There's people that aren't going to be really responding to you. I don't have enough time to give you in the day. But really judge, do I have 8 hours a day fully booked right now that I'm where this 30 seconds to send this person a text message to see if they're really engaged? I don't have time to fit that on my plate. Because if you're sitting there and you're really only doing 2 hours of work a day, my question is to you, do you really need to throw this one back? Do you have 30 seconds to spare to see if you could still cut them on the hook? Because this is a job, right? Even though it comes with a lot of freedom. So if you're sitting there like, I am so flush with business, I have 4 escrows, 4 tours, and 2 inspections to do in the next 48 hours. Oh yeah, that person that is not giving you the time of day, throw them back. But if you're sitting there like, hey, I got to make my first one and I don't really have anything to, it's this or sitting there and watch Netflix, do this instead.
Such a good point. And then the last one is, I think the most important that gets missed the most is asking for the appointment. So we do all this work to get the lead, to have the conversation. We have the perfect conversation, and then we don't end it with asking for the next step. And so at the end of every conversation, no matter what, we have to be asking for the appointment. And so a lot of times, so actually Shiloh, the company that we use for conversation evaluation, AI data, whatever you want to call it, they said that successful agents are 5.7 times more likely to convert because of just the one thing of asking the question, asking for the appointment. Like they can bomb everything else, but if they're really good at asking for the appointments, then they're 5.7 times better than the other agents. I might be saying that stat wrong, but they just released it like last week. I think we all got the email. But they just said like, hey, asking for the appointment, if you throw up everything else, but do this one thing, you have the chance to be a stud. So now naturally in conversations, we get objections. And I know this is like, especially when we're on the newer end, this is what we're afraid of because we're like, oh crap, what do they ask about this? I have no idea how any of that works. And we so often think that we have to be the source of all the information in the real estate world. And the reality is we're actually not expected to know that much. We are expected though to be the resource for the information. So we have to know where to obtain the information. And so most of the time, when you are able to say, hey, that's an awesome question, I actually don't know the complete answer, or I want to get you the right answer, what I love to do is I'm going to write that one down and I'll follow up with you later in business day or the next business day with the accurate answer, because the last thing I want to do is lead you the wrong way. So that's, the one first way I recommend. The other way is usually when people have objections, they're safeguarding something else. There's something else that's driving their question. So what you want to do when you get these is acknowledge the objection they had, compliment them for having it, and then ask a verifying question. An example would be, let's go back to the earlier question of Parisa had is, hey, I'm thinking about waiting to sell because prices might go up. And you go, awesome. You go, hey, so Parisa, sounds like you're concerned about selling now because you feel like the market could potentially be higher in the spring of 2027. And Parisa, honestly, that's really great that you're thinking in an ROI type of fashion like that, because all of my best clients are always thinking about ROI. But I'm just kind of curious, like, what has you thinking about making the move in the first place? Because achieving the highest sales price isn't usually their motivation for selling. They're usually selling because they're having a child, they're getting a divorce, they need to downsize, they need to upsize, they have to relocate. These are the things that are actually driving their decisions, not how much are they going to sell it for. So they're saying that to kind of just defer the conversation to a later point. So just go back to, hey, what's that real motivation? Let's help understand that. And if they say, well, hey, the reason why is because we have a baby coming in 6 months and we only have 2 bedrooms. Then you're like, okay, well then does it really matter if prices are higher next year or the year after that? Because you don't have another bedroom. So it's getting down to the real place that we need to be at in the conversation. Okay, so then I back to the funnel. So now we've talking through getting leads, having those conversations, and getting into those appointments. And so after we get into these appointments, we need to do a much, much better job of follow-up. And that's kind of what's come up a lot already on these questions that we're having along the language patterns is around the follow-up, because we feel like we're getting ghosted, or do we continue to chase these people? They're sending us weird stuff. And so we have to make follow-up the most important part of our business after we've gotten the lead, because it doesn't make sense for us to spend all that time and energy on lead generation if we're not going to follow up with people. And I share this graph a lot. It's one of my favorite graphs to share. And the stat here, third from the bottom, is the one that just like completely blows my mind. It's that 48% of salespeople will never follow up with a prospect a single time. And so if you just follow up once, you are in the better half of salespeople. But the reality is that 80% of sales are made on the 5th, 12th contact. And so one of the biggest mistakes that we probably make is that when we do get an appointment, we think that just going on that appointment equals us getting a conversion. We think getting that one person to agree to just meet with us means that we're getting paid. And the reality is that on average, it takes a person 7 hours of consuming you in order to do business with you. And so on a long appointment, we might go on like a 2-hour appointment on a long one. Like that would be a really long appointment, right? Like around 2 hours. We are still 5 hours short if we only did that 2-hour appointment. So you have to realize there has to be more done in the follow-up in order to get us closer to that duration of time to actually be in the position of conversion. And so one of the best ways we can do this is having a strategy for both the one-to-one, which is all we've been talking about so far, but also a strategy for one-to-many. And so the strategy for one-to-many is something that I've been recently obsessed with the past 6 months. And I've hired a marketing coach and things like that to better understand and better execute this part of the process. And so we have to have a plan for both of these in order to get people to consume our content. So on the one-to-one side, I believe this is the best strategy you can have. Book a meeting from a meeting. So at the end of every appointment, book your meeting from that meeting. And then have a follow-up plan based upon the timeline that they give you. So if they're going to need to transact in the next 30 days, you're following up twice per week. If they're trying to transact in 3 years, just divide 3 years by 3, and you can follow up in year 1, year 2, and then when there's 1 year left, you recalibrate into a once per quarter, and then as you continue to move up through the process. So we have to know timeline and motivation in order to know what frequency we should be following up on. And then when we're following up, what we don't want to do is we don't want to follow up with, hey, I'm just following up. We don't want to follow up with, hey, Keith, what are your weekend plans? And the worst one that I see people texting nonstop in our follow-up boss is, hey, Rebecca, by any chance you see any homes online you'd like to see in person this weekend? Anybody having great success with that last text message? I see it sent a lot, and I don't see any good responses on it. But yet people keep sending it because they don't know what else to say. Right? Is that fair to say? We're probably saying this because we don't know what else to say. Because maybe we didn't book a meeting from a meeting, we didn't get a good motivation, we didn't get a good timeline. We're at a disadvantage. So what can we do instead? Well, the best things to follow up with are first, value to solve their problem. So if you do know their motivation, the absolute by far best thing you can do is send them value pieces that solve their problem. So that can be properties if they're lower in the funnel, because that means they know their neighborhoods, they know their price point. So houses do solve their problem. But if they're a little bit higher in the funnel, meaning they're like more than a year out and they don't quite know those things yet, then we want to solve their problems in other ways. So we know that they're retiring and their favorite thing to do is go on walks. So we can send them articles about walks they can take in Pacific Grove versus Monterey. Or maybe we know that they're going to be using retirement funds to purchase an investment property. Well, then we can send them articles or YouTube videos about how to invest with a self-directed IRA, how to use a bridge loan to purchase another property, or how to do a 1031 exchange, because we're sending them stuff that's directly related to solving their problem. That's going to be your highest value stuff. But you might not know fully know their motivation, and there might not be enough value to send them yet. So in those cases, then you can default to these next things. The next one I would do is ask for advice. People freaking love giving advice on anything, because what you're doing when you ask somebody for advice is you're telling them, hey, Kevin, you're an expert on something. I want to do what you do. Tell me what you think I should do. And then all of a sudden they feel part of your journey. And we can do this in such a simple way. Like if we go see a house for another client, and let's say it has a goofy kitchen layout, we could send them the goofy kitchen layout and be like, hey, Rebecca, I remember from our showing you were really good with design. Check out this kitchen. I just saw this other day with one of my clients. What would you do to reconfigure this kitchen? Right? Now, boom, you're talking their love language right now. They're going to be pumped to talk to you. You ask something like that, they're not going to be ghosting you. You can also give them a compliment. You can show them gratitude. And then the best one is invite them to something. Not invite them as in, hey, did you see any properties you want to go see this weekend? More so, hey, I have an open house I'm going to be doing an open house, and I know you're not looking in the Modesto area, but this house has a really cool backyard with a water feature that I really would love for you to see. By any chance, are you available on Sunday? I'm going to be there from 12 to 2. You can stop by anytime and just come check it out. Much better, right? Than, hey, do you want to go see any houses this weekend? And then when we need to re-engage, then we have that situation where we're already getting ghosted. We need to get out of that ghost phase. This is from the book by Phil Jones, Exactly What to Say. Really amazing book. And this is my favorite part in the book, is kind of just this formula to re-engage people. And so you start with an opening to remind them who you are. Then you use an agreeable fact, and then you ask them a question. So opening would be, hey, Rebecca, I don't know if you remember, but we met 6 months ago at 123 Main Street. I'm sorry, I got a little busy and dropped the ball on the follow-up, but wanted to reconnect. I don't know if you were aware, but interest rates just dropped below 6.5. Just kind of curious, what do you think the interest rates would need to be at when buying makes sense for you? This is a way to re-engage somebody who you've lost that contact with, or maybe somebody who you just don't know what to say to next. So those are our one-to-one types, and then we have our one-to-manys. And so with the one-to-many is, you guys hear us talk a lot about this one-to-one, and sales is a one-to-one combat for sure. We have to be utilizing other methods to amplify our follow-up efforts. And so two of my favorite ways to do this are email and social media posts. You guys might have seen today I did a social media post about Max, who's absolutely crushing it right now with listings. His favorite is handwritten notes. So he calls people, tries to meet with them in person, and sends them handwritten notes. So whatever you choose on this spectrum is up to you. It's going to be the activity that you probably enjoy doing the most. but some of them have greater impact and some of them are easier to do. And so one-to-many here is this is the strategy that I would recommend to use. And it's actually the strategy that I am using today on all of my marketing. So the first thing that I'm doing for my one-to-many is I am friend requesting every single prospect. At minimum, I'm sending 20 friend requests on Facebook every single day. I then am trying to post on social media 1 to 3 times per day. And the 3 things that I rotate in my posts are spotlighting a client. So that's what I did today on Max. Spotlighted Max and the behavior that he had. I can teach something, but make sure it's something that they care about. So don't go teaching about the process to work with you. Teach about how the market's doing and how much their home can sell for. And then last is something personal about yourself. So you can rotate those three post types. I then love a weekly email. So we do this for you guys. It's the deal of the week email that's already taking place for you. And then as long as they're set up on Real Scout's then also doing it for you. So those are 2 high leverage activities you don't even have to do. But I would recommend pairing that with a monthly newsletter. And that newsletter should be just giving value on the 5 things that are on the top 4 things that I said they care the most about. And then I would do 1 Facebook Live per week. And this live does not have to be very long. And if you guys have been watching my Facebook and Sam Weaver's Facebook, we've been doing a lot of Facebook Lives. And we're just doing them about like anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And these are the 3 different things we're doing for them. So the best one you can do is, what's the most common objection you've been getting? So Parisa, an amazing Facebook Live for you to do would be the most common question I'm getting from sellers today is now a good time to sell, or should I wait until the summer of 2027 because prices might be higher? Right? Like, let's not hide from that objection. Let's not hide from that question. Let's face it head on. So that way, when we meet with our prospects, they've already had this question answered in their mind. Another great one would be, what's the current month of supply and age of inventory, which is data that you can get from Redfin. I'm running really low on time, or else I would show you that. And then what are the top 5 things sellers can do to add value to their home? Like, these are just like things off the cuff that I put on, but they're things that you can talk about for just 5 minutes in a Facebook Live. They're going to have a really big impact answering the exact questions that your clients are having. And then if you're also like, well, I don't know what to post on social media. Well, on our school group, we have 2 classrooms that have content made for you. One is broke agent media content templates, and the other one is listing leads content. So if you guys go into those classrooms on school, you literally can just click on the templates, switch out the picture, and post it. It has the description already written for you and everything. So it makes it really, really easy to get good content. And don't worry if you're posting the same thing as somebody else, because my followers are going to be different from Parisa's, who are going to be different from Keith's, who are going to be different from Deborah's. And even if there are small overlaps, the chances of somebody seeing and realizing that you both posted the same thing on the same day, very, very, very low. Very, 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 very low. Because honestly, they just don't care that much. My favorite kind of social media post right now that's crushing on engagement and it's super easy to make are these with black backgrounds with white text. And you say like, hey, here's the top 5 improvements every seller should consider before going to the market. You do comment number 1 is, staging. Comment number 2 is declutter. Comment number 3 is reports. Comment number 4 is flooring. And comment number 5 is paint. Boom, you got an amazing social media post. Just took you 30 seconds to make. And then the social media posts that I've been doing over the last 6 months that perform by far the best are just these little selfies. So if you just take like selfies of yourself in front of a house, if you're going to do a showing before you start the showing, get there early before you start opening the house. Take a picture of yourself around the house, and then just quick little blurb about like, so excited to show this house on 123 Main Street today. And then email is my other one that I'm fired up about. So initially for this training, I was going to do a workshop for how to do email marketing. But I actually ended up finding a solution that was so simple that I couldn't make it into a training. So I can tell you this in about 2 seconds. So there is a website now called Beehive, Beehiiv. It's essentially a newsletter / blog website that has insanely good email deliverability. So they're very protective of their email deliverability. They verify email lists before they're uploaded to make sure that they're valid emails. And then they automatically will run you on warm-up campaigns. And if you're getting too many spams or blocks, they'll immediately cut you off because they want to protect all of their other members. So you can't go on here and start just spamming people like crazy. You have to actually be uploading good lists and then sending good emails. But if you're able to get good lists and send good emails, they make it really, really easy. So you don't want to send emails like, I have cash buyers, call me now. That will get you blocked and kicked out of Beehive. You don't send emails like, looking to buy or sell, I can help. That will get you kicked off of Beehive. What you do want to say is something like, in your subject line, everyone's saying the market is softening, ... And then your first line in the email body is, but the numbers tell a different story. And the body of your email can say this story that the numbers are telling. And so subject line and your first line are the most important factors of your emails actually getting read. They're like actually the only thing that matters. The content of your body actually doesn't matter at all. It really just matters what your subject line is in the first sentence. So the 3 strategies you can use for subject lines are a bold statement, and then either prove that correct or prove that wrong in the email. Start a sentence and then finish it in the body like I did here. Or just ask an open-ended question and then answer that question in the body. If you utilize one of these 3 different strategies, it becomes very easy. And then what's cool is you can just like screenshot this right now, put it into Claude, and then be like, hey, I want to write an email about the absorption rate in my market right now. Write me a subject line using one of these 3 different strategies. And they'll pump you out 3 different subject lines using these strategies. So it'll do it all for you too. And so as you continue down the funnel, we then can see if the follow-up is your constraint, and that's how we would solve it. And then last is if it's in the conversion. And I think that most people who are having problems at the conversion phase, the reason why they're having trouble is because they're going into that appointment with this mindset. They're going in with a mindset of thinking, I'm going to meet this person for the first time, and because they met with me for 20 to 30 minutes, they are going to automatically love me, sign paperwork, and want to work with me forever. And so we all think that we are going on a first date and going to be able to ask for marriage. And the reality is, rarely does that actually happen. If that does happen, it's usually only because your follow-up and one-to-many strategy was insanely good, and they had already consumed so much content of you that they already knew everything about you, and that this coming to this meeting was more of just a formality to get to meet you in person. That would be the only case in which that first appointment would turn out in this marriage proposal type of situation. Otherwise, we really should be looking at this first appointment as a first date, a first dance, our first opportunity to build like and trust, and then to put ourselves in a pretty amazing place where then we can follow up and provide value to people and just start acting as if we're already their realtor. And so what you guys should all be able to do from conversion is not just sit there and say, I have this listing appointment coming up, that's my conversion. What we all should be able to have is our conversion with our next 5. And so you should be able to have a Word doc that looks kind of like this with 5 different prospects on it, where you have your prospect's name, stated what their motivation is, stated what their timeline is, and then stated what's your next action step this week to move them one step closer to their goal. Now, on that last one, pay attention. It doesn't say action step to convert them, because that would be my action step to get to marriage. You're not looking to get to marriage yet. We have to get to the next date. So what's your one action step to get them to the next date this week? And then you could act on that. So what I hope you guys got today is I hope that you're going to be able to now identify what is the biggest leak in your bucket. And then I want to know, how much time and energy are you willing to dedicate in order to solve it? And so for me, what I'm doing is I'm spending 3 90-minute blocks per week where all I'm doing is only focused on solving that biggest hole in my bucket. And nothing else is entering that time and getting in my way, because I'm relentlessly trying to solve it.